So today I'm going to walk through my process for brewing a 2.5 gallon batch, all grain, brew in the bag, right here in my kitchen. Before we jump into the brew day process, I just want to give you a little warning. This video is a little bit long. I've been promoting benefits of 2.5 gallon brew in the bag brewing, stovetop, and I wanted this video to be really kind of a deep dive and overview of my process. Note that I said this is my process. It's not the only process. It's not necessarily the cheapest process. I'm sure it's not the best process for making beer, but I do find it is a process that is affordable, easy to do, does make really good beer. So this may or may not be a good process for you and your needs, but I do think it is an adaptable process that most people could use, whether to fit in as an end-all system or just fitting in some smaller batches into their larger batch brewing. So while today I'm going to be brewing a pale ale recipe, the things we're going through today really do apply to almost brewing any style of beer. So in the future, I do plan to keep the videos a little bit more focus on specific topics. If we look at a recipe and a brew day, we'll look at specifics to that brew day. To keep the video length reasonably short, I've cut out tasting from this video. Also, since Kvike fermentation is quite different than most normal ale fermentations, I've captured that footage and I'll put that out in a future video just to talk about Kvike fermentation. Alright, enough rambling. Let's go ahead and get into brew day. It's time to brew some pale ale. So I'm going to walk through today. What I'm hoping to cover is I'm going to try to brew an Americanish pale ale, kind of a hoppy one, fermented with Kvike. Doing a 2.5 gallon batch, so I want to quickly go over the recipe and some of the thoughts. We'll take a quick look at the equipment, and then we'll get brewing, and hopefully this will be a smooth day for that. So the basic recipe for this one, I was looking for something a little different than the standard Sierra Nevada Pale Ale clone, but also nothing too radically. I'm looking for a little character of American Pale Ale. So I'm looking at 85% pale malt. So I got American Raw, standard 2-row for that. I'm looking at 10% flaked oats, 5% crystal 40. So in my 2.5 gallon batch, that's 4 pounds, 4 ounces of the pale malt, 8 ounces of flaked oats, and 4 ounces of crystal 40. For the hops, again, this is a 2.5 gallon batch, so double it in your head. But I'm bittering with some Columbus to give me about 16 IBUs at the beginning. In this case, it's 0.2 ounces. Mosaic and Citra. So this is going to be a Mosaic Citra beer. I've got a lot of that in the fridge, although in these small amounts, it's going to take a lot of batches to use up a pound or two of those. We're doing a combined 1/2 ounce, the Mosaic Citra, for a 10-minute boil. We're doing another combined 1/2 ounce of the Mosaic Citra combo, so half of each at flame out. We'll let that, probably 5 or 10 minutes, let that steep a little bit. And then we're doing another combined ounce Mosaic Citra in a dry hop. We'll try to do that toward the end of the dry hop, using some yeast nutrient, Irish moss, standard stuff. We're going to use the Omega Voss Kvike yeast. I have some of that from a prior batch that I saved. Hopefully it's still good. It's got a reputation of being a beast of a yeast for storage. We're doing some water chemistry adjustments, a little gypsum just to bring up the sulfate, a little phosphoric acid. Don't want to get into too much detail there if you're a new beginner, but we'll just see what I do there. Nothing to real strike. Mash it at 153. We're going to ferment it. Try to ferment it pretty warm. We're looking at an OG in this one of 1049. Final gravity 1010. Yeah, maybe fine. It'll give us about a 5% beer. This is geared around about a 70% overall efficiency. Let's take a quick look at the equipment that I'm going to use today. Alright, let's start with some of the core items. I've got this 5 gallon pot I picked up off Amazon. I got a nice quality one, but you can get anything that holds water and boils. I got a brew bag that I'd picked up at my homebrew shop a while ago. This one's got some loops that are nice. A brew thermometer. I really like this long stem one. Problem is not crazy accurate, so I have this sort of fragile glass one that I'll just use to verify that it's on. That's nice. I've got a couple scales here. One goes up to that, has a higher capacity, so I'll weigh grain on that one. Another one that's got a more resolution, so I'll use that for brewing salts. A couple stainless steel spoons. Got a refractometer, which is a really handy item to have, but definitely want to get you the hydrometer here for taking gravity readings. Kind of in the back there, I've got some buckets. One of them, and I got some sanitizer, some Star San. So one of the buckets is filled with some Star San solution that I used, made up last weekend. I'll keep it in the bucket. The other ones are just handy to have some buckets on brew day for putting grain in, for washing, keeping water. My fermenter here, this Fermonster, I really like this. Is a 3-gallon one. I like the ones with the spigot. Airlock, potentially may just use a blow-off tube when we actually get fermenting it. Miscellaneous stuff like these little pitchers, depending on which size you're measuring. Those are handy. Some little cups for weighing out hops or weighing out your any additions. We won't get into bottling today, but I've got a bottling wand here and my bottle capper. And this bottling wand, I can just put it right on the end of the spigot if I want to bottle directly out of the fermenter. A couple miscellaneous, this, depending on your setup, I use this for when I'm draining the grain. It sits over the top of a bucket. This colander, got another strainer and a funnel that I'll use when I'm transferring it into the fermenter. Works well for me just to try to get rid of some of the most of the hops. Got a couple items here for waters chemistry. The basic ones here, like some Campton tablets for getting rid of chlorine, chloramine. Something like a Whirlfloc or an Irish moss helps with clarification of a beer, helps drop out proteins. Some other ones here, we've got some gypsum, which is very common. Calcium sulfate, calcium chloride. In this case, it's something that they sell for pickling, but you can either buy that at the homebrew shop or buy it at a store. Some phosphoric acid, and I'm running kind of low on that. All right, and then we get into a couple more optional items. I do have this pH meter that I use. I think it was like $35 or something. It works okay. It's maybe not as high regarded as a $100 one, but it was good for me to learn, and it's been useful. This immersion chiller, very handy item to have. I'm going to use that to chill down with a 2.5-gallon batch. You can use just ice in a bath in a sink or something. I'll use the immersion chiller because it works well, especially this time of year when my water's cold. I also have a mill, really handy. I definitely advocate if you're brewing a lot, brew the consistency, and you'll save money buying bulk grain. And it's just, for me, it's convenient to have grain on hand and just be able to whip up a recipe and brew it. So that is the equipment that hopefully I got everything together. It looks like a lot spread out, but it's not that expensive, and I talk about it in my article on the website. Let's quick measure out the grain that we're going to need. So I've got this bucket. Just got a new pack of raw churros, so we need 4 pounds and 4 ounces. Alright, there we are. So these oats will not go through the mill, so I'm not going to put them in the bucket. I will, here, I will check off the pale malt and the crystal malt. I'm going to not check off the flake oats yet because I've made a mistake of not adding those to the mash before. So let's get the mill going. static there, but that's what we're looking for. Nothing fancy here. I'm just filling up the pot with water. I've got this little cheat dipstick that I've measured out. I'm going to need 3.5 gallons. In this case, it's 3.5 gallons because I'm only doing a 30-minute boil. If I was doing a full 60-minute boil, I would need 3.8, 3.9 for this recipe. So I'm just watching it to get close. Again, precision here. Consistency is more important than the actual accuracy, but all right, so we got our 3.5 gallons of water. Now I'm time. I have the water in the stove here. I got a timer. It's been a little over 5 minutes. I've got my additions. The other thing I'd say, important, using tap water, these Campton tablets. I have a half a tablet here, which is plenty for this batch. Probably a quarter of a tablet would be about the right amount. Crush it up, add that in. I measured out gypsum. I don't remember what the amount there, and then I had 10 milligrams of some phosphoric acid, just enough for a slight adjustment. Alright, now I'm just going to stir that in real well. Alright, so our target strike temp is 160, so 159, 160 is good, a good temp. So I used this other one just to verify. I had looked like it was pretty much right on. You probably can't see it, but this one's slow. It's still moving up slowly, but it's out. So it was 158-ish. This one looks like it's pointing right at 160. All right, so I just finished mixing in the grain. I forgot to hit the record. Just mixing in the oats. Got to make sure I don't forget those. Key, just making sure you mix everything in slowly, stir it in well, get everything wet, make sure you don't have any dough balls. Part of the key to having a decent efficiency is getting off to a good start. Target mash temp's in the low 150s. Okay, still moving a little slow, so right at 152. Perfect. That's a great 152, 153 is sort of what we're shooting for. Then we'll go ahead and wrap this sucker up. Come back in about 30 minutes. Yeah, let's leave that out. So we got these two blankets. One's a little easier to clean. The other's a sleeping bag. I'm just going to wrap her up nice and tight. All that good. The mash has been going for about 20 minutes now. Let's just go ahead and measure out the hops. Like I said, we need Columbus. I'm just using a little bit of Columbus as a bittering charge, 0.2 ounces. You can and these little cups are pretty handy. So I also measured out a little bit of Irish moss and then some beer nutrient. I had bought this last time I made the kvike. I've been trying to throw it in batches. I just measured out my standard amount of one. This says this ingredients say 2 grams in a 5-gallon batch, so I did 1.1. But now as I was just about putting it away, I recall that since it's a low gravity kvike beer, I'm going to go ahead and go the full 2.2 grams. Let me go ahead and add a little bit more of this. So we got I'm going to get 1 gram of Irish moss, and then I'm going to go 2.2 grams of nutrient. Alright, so we're right at the 30-minute mark. I'm going to go ahead and unwrap this. Stir it up. With my So we're at 30 minutes. Like so, this opening this up is letting a little bit of heat out. At this point, most of the conversion should have occurred. Temperature is not that critical. A little lower temperature will continue. We'll be fine. We're looking just extracting sugars, trying to finish up the last bit of conversion. We're right at, it's pretty much right at 150, maybe 149 and a half. So that's good temperature. So we dropped 2 degrees or so, which is fine. All right, let's go ahead and set this aside. We have it all stirred up. So just take, need just a small amount for the pH reading. We'll cool that down and see where we're at. I'm going to just wrap it back up and let it go for another half an hour. Easy peasy. I'm going to take a pH reading. So I took a sample here from the mash at 30 minutes, put it in some ice water, cooled it down. So 25 Celsius, which is what, 76 or something Fahrenheit. Got my pH meter. I had calibrated this a week ago, so I'm not going to worry about step through calibrating today. Just have a little bit of distilled water I use to rinse it off. Given the life of this meter, I think it's probably about time to get a replacement probe, but alright, I'll go ahead and put it in there, turn it on, see where we're getting at. So alright, looks like we're in a pretty good range right now. It'd probably raise up a little bit. I'll just give it 30 seconds to somewhere around the 5.3, 5.4 would be ideal. It looks like we're going to be close to 5.4, 5.36, 5.37. Ooh, the mash is done. Time to unwrap the present. Alright, so whatever process works here, we're going to go ahead and pull the bag out. I just find it's a little easier to move it over to the sink here, so I don't have to worry about dripping on the stove or dripping on my counters. Alright, looks like we're just getting sure to give everything a little last stir here. See where we're at with our mash temp. Alright, so we dropped, what are we, 147-ish or so. That's not bad. So, we dropped 5 degrees. 4 or 5 degrees is about, that should be perfectly fine. So I don't think you need to stress much about mash temperatures. I'll record that on my recipe book, or recipe sheet. Alright. Now it's time to go ahead and pull out the bag from the, I use this little colander, it fits pretty well right over this bucket. Move that out of the way. Let's move this a little bit. See what's going on. Just gonna gather up the bucket, or grab up the straps here. Alright.
Just looking for a very easy process here. Nothing crazy. So I'll pull it out, let it drain a little bit. Get some of that good sugars out of there. Alright, yeah, instead of standing here holding it and squeezing the hot bag, and just move it over here. Let that set while I go ahead and move this over to the stove. Alright, I'll just make sure get the lid on the side. Just don't want sticky wort. Right now it's all nice and sweet and sticky. I'll go ahead and move this to the stove though and get it boiling while I just let this drain for 10 minutes or so. Alright, can you hear it? You can just hear it dripping away. Find this much easier. The easiest process that I've found, and I would suggest for anybody, just find a process that works okay. If you have a way around where you're brewing to hang up the bag, that works well. If you have some kind of bucket like this, if you have something, strainer that you can sit over the top of your kettle, that works as well. Holding even a 2.5 pound grain bag and then trying to squeeze it is not what I would suggest, but what works for you. So I moved the pot onto the oven or the stove. I turned it on. I'm going to get my thermometer so we can keep an eye. Got to make sure as it gets, as if you brewed beer, as it gets right up to boiling, it's a danger point. So I'm going to take a quick volume. I use that dipstick just to kind of see where we're at. So we are 2.8 or so gallons in the pot right now. Based on kind of calculations, if we're looking at, we can see this about 3.2 gallons pre-boil. I think we'll be right about at that target based on what's draining over in the bucket. And then I'm going to go ahead and take a quick reading with the refractometer. Pour a little bit on there. Alright, looks like it's right around 11 bricks, which, let's see if I do a conversion. So it says 1054 right now. We've got a target of pre-boil 1042. The runnings on the bucket will probably be a little lower. So by the time we top it up, I think we'll be somewhere right about. We might be gravity 2 or point above, but it looks like we're going to be real close to our target pre-boil volume and gravity. So that's a plus. All right, I can see it still dripping. I can look in there. I don't know what we have. I'm just going to do a real simple, just kind of try to get a little bit more water out of there. And then transfer. So we've got, that's the drippings we have here. We'll add that to the pot, and then we'll just do a quick check of the volume and see where we're at. Alright, the beer is getting really close to boiling temperatures. We're up about 185-ish or so Fahrenheit. You can see the clock in the background, 12:40. It was right around 10 o'clock when I started measuring out grain. So we're about less than 2 hours and 40 minutes into the process. We're right about to start our boil. We're going to have a 30-minute boil. Keep an eye on the volume. I said I was shooting for, I don't know if we can see this or not, 3.2 with my little dipstick. We're really close to that. We were shooting for, let's take a quick gravity reading here. Shooting for a pre-boil gravity of 1042. And I think we're going to be, we're still right about at that 11 brick mark. What would we say that was? 1045. So we're, at least based on this, I don't put a ton of credence in exactly what I get from the refractometer. I look for a hydrometer, but it looks like we're right on target, maybe a point or two above. I'm just starting to see some rolling, so I'm going to keep an eye on it, make sure it doesn't boil over. Got our hops ready to go in. Right now we're real close to boiling and start getting a little bit of foam on top. What I like to do, some people will let it boil, let the hop break foam, and then add their hops. What I like to do is just add them a little bit before the boil. I think the general theory is that the hop matter helps break up some of the surface tension, so you don't get quite as much of that initial boil up. So give them a quick stir in, and then we'll see how it does when it starts to boil here, which is we're real close to right now. But otherwise, I found that you get a big boil up, big head boils up. Got to get that down, and then when you throw in the hops, it causes it to, you know, potentially boil up again. I've got quite a bit of head space in this pot, this 5-gallon pot, so I'm not too worried about a boil over. But a boil over on the kitchen sink is not a fun problem to have. It makes a mess. Got to make sure you stop and clean it up quickly, otherwise it will be on there forever. Alright, the beer is just starting to come to a boil. Take a quick look at it. There we go. Just let it go for a minute, see how the foam on top does. See if my strategy worked. So I find in general on my stovetop, I pretty much leave the burner about on high to get a decent boil. You know, once this foam's the size, the vigor of the boil will calm down a little bit. Alright, let me go ahead and stir that in. Alright, get our timer going. It's only a 30-minute boil. Yeah, that started. Alright, I just want a kind of a gentle roll and boil. It's actually going a little higher than I want right now. Just turn it down a little bit. Bring up the brew day timer. Boil. Go. Saying we're reflective. We have some Irish moss. We'll just add that at 10 minutes. So we've got something there. So we only have 30-minute boil. So I'm going to try to I'm going to need to get some of the sanitization steps going here soon. Alright, so as the boil is going, it's time to start thinking about sanitation. Every time we need to sanitize everything that's going to touch our beer after it starts to chill. So one thing I'd say, I've got a little cheat sheet. So just kind of check off, make sure I have the things, my fermenters with spigots. What I do for small items, I have a hop sack like this. Go like that, and throw my little items in there. Get my spigot all the way apart. This is an important step if you're using spigots. Make sure everything in there, pull them apart, clean them out, get them sanitized, make sure all the little gets cleaned out. I'm going to use I don't think I'll need that airlock. I'll use a blow-up tube. I'll start it off just probably with some foil. There's the lid. I've got a spray bottle that I can use. Well, so essentially what you need to make sure everything is damp, the surface is damp for a minute or starting to sanitize. We'll do that. We'll come back later and we'll put some more in there and just make sure we get our spigot on there and make sure it's not leaking. Well, we actually have 5 more minutes. That's supposed to do. To add the work like that. We're going to add that everything at 10 minutes. Our hops, some hops, and other additions. All right, you can see we got a nice gentle boil going. So it looks like based on just kicked off, so we're going to add our flavor hops or our 10-minute hop addition. Go ahead and throw those in there. The other addition this time is the yeast nutrient and a little bit of Irish moss. Alright, I'll check those off the list. Add my spoon. And stir them in well. .10 minutes and we'll be done with the boil. Alright, there's about 5 minutes left in the boil. I've got my chiller, my spoon, my thermometer all in here, all sanitized, ready to chill. I'm going to go ahead and get pieces for my fermenter together. I like to use this little, just to take the lid, some star sand on it. Gives me just a little bit of a spot to put stuff. Stick it together. Pop on there. Set that aside. We're just about ready for our flame out addition and to start chilling on our wort. End of the boil. By this timer. The beer sense will beep here in a second. I'm going to just do a quick turn off the heat, take a quick look, make sure it's all stirred up. It's been boiling, so everything should be well mixed. That we're looking at 2.8 gallons, so we're 2.7-ish, 2.7 gallons. Looking at 10:49, we're at right at 12 bricks, probably. So 10:49, that's right. So that's close, and we're pretty much right on track. So I'm going to take my flame out hops. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to stir these in, and then I'm going to let this sit for 5 minutes with the lid on. Our 5-minute timer was up. I'm going to go ahead and move the pot over to the sink. Touch that, it'll be hot. Chill. Give it one last stir with that spoon. Set that aside. Got my immersion chiller sanitized, so it's ready to go. Got it hooked up to a device in my sink. I can gather to collect some warm water there. Got my thermometer sanitized. I've got a sanitized spoon in this bucket, which I will use to stir with. So I got to remember, I only need to chill this one down to about 90 degrees. Good. We're at 100 degrees. I will use this sanitized spoon here. Let's see if I set a timer. Set a little timer. See how long this takes to chill down. Down to about 160 already. It's only been a minute and a half. Alright, so this is my simple setup. Just add immersion chiller down into the pot. Where are we at right now? If we get it to focus, 120-ish Fahrenheit. We're getting reasonably close. I'm going to try to get it down to about 90 degrees. Transfer it and then pitch the spike yeast. Alright, so we're at 4 minutes and 35 seconds. We've got most, 4 gallons of water to it so far. But a constant stirring is by far the easiest way to chill it down. Alright, what are we doing? Alright, we're getting close. 105 degrees. So we're getting pretty close to our target. We're at 8 minutes right now. Exactly. We're able to get it down right really close to 92 degrees. So. Alright, I'm going to call that good. Just had it stirred up. Let's grab the sample. This is a sanitized. Grab that before. I think I was just stirring it up, so it should be all mixed up well. And I set my spoon down, so I didn't want to put the spoon back in. Take this off. Put the lid on the pot. The lid should be on the boiling. Give it a try. Alright, so now that's pretty much ready to go. And now it's time to get everything ready to pitch it, to transfer it into the fermenter. Alright, knock on wood that this goes well. What I did was I moved the chiller and rinsed it off, put it in my bucket of water, warm water to clean. Got this, it's all sanitized inside and out. A little bit of Star San is not going to make a difference. Make sure the spigot is off, very important. Don't ask me why. So I'm going to use, there's plenty of different ways that you can use to transfer. How much trub you want to leave behind, how much hop debris you want to mess with. I'm going, I suspect I'll have a reasonable amount of hops. I'll probably have to dump that strainer at least once. I'm just going to move this plate over here as a place to do that. So I've got my sanitized funnel. I've got this sanitized sprayer. Again, it's got some Star San on it. That's fine. I guess I don't want this sit on there. Put the lid. I've got that little sanitized area on that lid. Hopefully it is sanitized enough. Alright, so now we're going to take a quart, which we've chilled down to about 90 degrees. And we're just going to pour it into the fermenter. I find these, for me, this size batch is a reasonable. This pot has some nice handles. I'm doing it over the sink just because I have wooden floors in my bathroom or my kitchen here. And I really don't want. Alright, so a lot of the hops have settled out in a few minutes it was there. Alright, so I'm just Trying to see, we're starting to get a bit of trubby stuff. Alright, there's just a, I don't know if we can see it, there's a little bit of poppy stuff in there that I'm not going to worry about. Sure, I've got some of these fermenters with some marks on it. Oh yeah, I do, I got over there. Yeah, I lied. I'm just going to go ahead and pour the rest of the liquid in here. More beer, more good. Very little. That extra 2 ounces of beer. Alright. Set those aside. Those in there actually. So this was the hop, and if we can make sure we can see it on the camera here. So these were the hops that were left that were able to filter out. There's still going to be a lot of trub that's going to settle out into the fermenter, but I feel good, keeping the majority of the gunk out of there. And if I do it quick, if I can bring that up and see where the markings are on the other side. So there's 2.5. We're just above that line, whether if you call it 2.6 or not. Try to shoot for about 2.6 into the fermenter, and we've got about maybe a little less than that. All right, so let's think about pitch and yeast. All right, so what I am using, I had last year, let's see, this little thing with some yeast into it. So it's a long time ago, it was actually like 11 months ago. I made an IPA-ish with Voss. What I did was I took a packet of the Omega yeast, did a starter just to kind of build up some volume, and then split that into 4 jars. So this was basically a fourth of that volume from that quick starter that I made. I pitched the same amount into a 5-gallon batch, fermented well. This one's pretty old, and but I'm hoping, based on what everybody tells me about Kvike, that this is a good pitch rate for this beer. As you can see, the beer in the background is starting to, you can see some of the proteins and trubs starting to settle out. So I've sanitized this a couple times. I'm going to drain off the majority of the liquid from that, and then give it a shake. All right, so we got a little bit of the liquid. This is probably going to be a pretty chunky yeast. All right, looks like we got it good mixed up. All right, so we'll see if it's a success or a failure. See if what I read on the internets is true. We'll move that around a little bit, and then we'll just pitch this sucker in there, and then we can move it into a nice area where it's going to stay warm. Alright, so I'm going to put that lid on. I've got a sanitized piece of foil for now that I will put over the top. And I will move this into a nice warm spot, and we'll see if we have beer. Alright, that was just about 4 hours, start to finish, not bad. Time to get a porter, 2 o'clock, time for a beer. Take a gravity sample. This is, I've chilled this down. Alright, let's see. We're expecting about a 1050-ish beer, 1020. Shooting for 1049, looks like we're right about 1050, 1051-ish, something. So if you stuck around this long, well, congratulations. Hopefully you've learned something along the way.
So I have no real plans to make a living as an influencer, but this is just a way for me to share some of my information. But if you like my content, feel free to subscribe to the channel, and you'll get some notifications when I put out some new content. Hopefully I'll put out some high quality content related towards specific topics I'm brewing, about brewing styles, about building better beers. So the overall focus of my channel is going to be on brew in the bag brewing, small batch brewing, focusing on ways, experimental, investigative brewing to improve your process, to evaluate hops, evaluate grains, evaluate different techniques. You can find me. I've got a new Instagram channel at Cascades Brewer, where I will be posting just sneak peeks of brew days, so you can give a little bit of a heads up on what's coming out. I've got this YouTube channel that I'm hoping to continue to grow with some new videos. The main source is going to be my website, which is at cascadeshomebrew.com. So feel free to drop in there. You'll see my articles, and then you also get links to Instagram, and I'll put up links to any post that I make. And as a sneak peek to the Pale Ale, I just kegged it yesterday. It's really young. It's not carbonated. It's got a lot of the yeast, the orangey character from the yeast. Right now, I'm not getting a lot of the hops, but I'll come back in a little bit, and hopefully I'll have some videos that talk a little bit about specifically how I fermented that beer. I've got some footage on how I do a closed keg transfer, and then we'll come back with some tasting notes, and just to see how this batch turned out. Like the purpose of this video is not specifically about this great recipe that I have, because it was a first time try at this recipe with some ideas that I had to come up with something a little different for a pale ale that I would like to brew. The purpose of this video really is just to kind of show a process that can be applied to brew good beer at home, minimal equipment, at least either get you started brewing 2.5 gallon batches, 2 gallon batches, or if you feel like a mid-sized batch would fit well along with your, say, 5 or 10 gallon batches. So again, hopefully you found the content interesting. Happy brewing, and let's get out there and let's build some better beer.